Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of 9 Weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast. Alongside the NESCAC man, Dave Bagatelle, I'm Chris Grace. We've got a great show for you. We've got 3 great interviews, which you'll have to stay tuned to find out who will be joining us on this podcast. Another week goes by, Dave. The dust is starting to settle just a little bit. We're starting to figure out where the power struggle might be within the NESCAC, but still plenty to digest, still plenty of questions to be answered. I think it probably makes the most sense, first and foremost, to touch on the games last week. But how you doing, man?
I am doing fantastic. I can't believe half the season's over. Boy, it happens
More than half.
quick. Yeah, more than half. But hey, this could be one of the most exciting finishes to an NESCAC season I think I've ever seen. So I'm really looking forward to these last 4 weeks, and in particular, if everybody, and we're going to talk about it, hold serve this week, and the last 3 weeks could be really fun.
Yeah, to quote the Brits, it is finally poised to be a great finish to the season, Dave. And we'll touch on that as we go forward. But for the people joining us and with time in mind, let's just jump right in. Last week, we thought, first of all, it's a ho-hum week when Dave and I agree on all 5 picks, and we did.
Right.
We'll just go right down the list and look at the games from last week. Trinity went to Clinton and just completely controlled the game from start to finish, a 49-0 victory for Trinity. We talked to Coach Devaney last week. He felt like his team was getting better and improving, and boy, did they improve. A 49-0 victory over Hamilton. And perhaps the most impressive thing is not Trinity scoring 49 points, but shutting out Hamilton. Tough 2-week stretch for the Continentals, but a really impressive performance by the Bantams.
Yeah, Hamilton's been outscored 14-105 the last 2 weeks, and to face arguably the 2 best teams in the league, certainly first and second in my rankings anyway. And I feel like Trinity probably could have scored a lot more points and called off their guys at the end there. Hamilton couldn't get really anything going offensively. As we've discussed, the issue with Hamilton is they have a great passing attack, but there's one-dimensional. And if you stop Luke Curzon, and you have the ability to stop Luke. He's not an easy guy to stop. He's a good player. But you can beat Hamilton, and their defense they've struggled a little bit, and Trinity was all over them and had a lot of guys run the ball, a lot of guys catch the ball, and Jackson Carroll had another great game, and they just seem to be getting better every week. They're peaking at the right time. They struggled, obviously, week 1 and losing to Colby, and they haven't really looked bad since. So they're on a roll. They've scored 40-plus points their last 2 weeks. I wouldn't be this week. We're going to talk about this week later, but they've certainly been cranking it up.
Yeah, you talk about Trinity. The one question mark was going to be their quarterback play, and it looks like they figured it out. Jackson Carroll, 22 for 30, 290, 3 touchdowns, no turnovers. Obviously balancing the football, running the football in this game. It's probably hard to distinguish, but they had 39 carries for 234 and 4 touchdowns on the ground. But if you look at the box score, there were a lot of guys that carried the football for Trinity. When Tyler DiNapoli just has 19 yards rushing and you rush for 234, you're dominating the line of scrimmage, and they did that. And just a tough game for Hamilton. Luke Curzon couldn't get it going. That's a tough back-to-back for them. Obviously, there's no tougher stretch in back-to-back weeks than having to play Trinity and Wesleyan. Hamilton will have more opportunities as the year goes forward, but Trinity really finding their form. Wesleyan traveled to Waterville to take on Colby, and this was a game that we talked about. We both felt pretty confident that Wesleyan was going to come out on top. Colby does some things defensively. They've got some dudes out there, but Wesleyan really jumped out, and it was a workman-like performance. Colby with a kind of a one-off touchdown, but the Wesleyan defense dominated this game. Offensively, they did what they've been doing. relying on the combination of Dante Kelly and, of course, Newcomb. And Matt Fitzsimons continues to have just a spectacular debut season as a Wesleyan signal caller. And the Cardinals maintain their pole position atop the NESCAC along with Trinity and Williams and Amherst with everything to play for.
Yeah, I would say I would categorize this more than a workman. I think the score could have easily been much worse than it was. Wesleyan really pretty much had their way with
He can't help
Colby.
himself, people. He can't help himself.
Sorry about that. But, Colby had 20 yards passing on the day. They were 3 of 16. It seemed to me that Miles Drake was so concerned with not turning the ball over, that he just went very conservative and wasn't being aggressive with trying to throw the ball. And I don't know, my feeling was that just hurt his game, and he didn't turn the ball over, sure, but throwing for 20 yards, I don't care what level of football it is, pee-wee, high school, college, 20 yards passing in a game is just really, really unheard of. That's just an incredibly low number. And it's not like Wesleyan gave up a lot of ground ball yards rushing either. There was 37 yards on the one play at the end of the game. Dante Kelly was trying to make a play. He muffed the punt and fumbled the ball and gave Colby short field, and they ripped off a big run. What was interesting about that, just a word, was, by the way, Dante Kelly had just an amazing day at 12 catches for 140 yards. He's now the leader in the NESCAC in catches. He's the leader in receiving, all as a freshman, I might add. But he seemed determined on that next drive. I'd really like to see this. He seemed determined to make up for that drop punt. And that next drive just seemed to be all Dante Kelly. He wanted the ball, and he was on a mission to get in the end zone, which he did, and really put the game away. Great job by the Wesleyan defense. The offense, led by quarterback Matt Fitzsimons, who's having a really great year, but a lot of balance there. Newcomb and Kelly and the tight ends are playing great, and they ran the ball great. So just a good win all the way around. And by the way, Wesleyan has they've won a lot of the games against Colby, but these games are generally very close, especially up there. 2 years ago, they lost in a torrential rainstorm. So those have not been easy wins for Wesleyan, particularly in Waterville. So that's a really important, really impressive win for Wesleyan.
Yeah, when I say workmanlike, that's not meant to be an insult. That just means, in my perspective, that they went in on a business trip and they took care of business, and that's an actual trip, right? So they showed up and they took care of business. That's something that we haven't seen even last year from a Wesleyan team that won the NESCAC. We didn't see these types of performances. That's now 3 of their 4 victories have been, wait a minute. No, all 4 of their victories have been pretty comprehensive. So it's a different Wesleyan team. And we talked about this in the beginning of the year. It's one thing to win a championship. It's another thing to win a championship and establish your program as a team that's not going anywhere. And that seems to be what we're seeing.
And they're not looking, I mean, this is a soft part of their schedule, one could argue. Granted, there's no easy games in the NESCAC. I'll give you that, but be very easy for Wesleyan to look past some of these teams. The Hamilton, then they're not. They're going out there and
kind
get
of
it done.
bugaboo over the last 5 or 6 years, right? You play a great game against maybe a more traditional program, and then you stumble and maybe win a game in overtime that you should win more convincingly or whatever. That's not been the case. Listen, they've been very impressive. I can't say enough about how impressive they are, and they have the best receiving core in the league, and they're getting great quarterback play and really solid play on both lines, and they're going to be there with everything to play for. We move forward. Amherst and Bowdoin. This was a game that was pretty tight in the first half, and then Amherst really exploded in half number 2, Dave. And I already said that Trinity took down Hamilton, and with Amherst's victory over Bowdoin, you know what that means? Both of our guests last week were victorious, which means there is no 9 weeks curse, my friend. That was a facade. Amherst outscores Bowdoin in the second half 24-0, and they win 34-7. And Merrick Hill, who is our guest, 334 yards through the air, and then 37 yards and a touchdown on the ground, 3 total touchdowns, 370 yards of total offense, he got a bump. It's the 9 weeks NESCAC bump, Dave. That's where we're going now. It is a bump being on this program, my friend. Credit to Amherst. Obviously, it was a challenging trip, and they got off to a slow start, but they figured it out, and they're 4-1. And they probably have the best case to be 5-0 in this entire league. Of all the teams, they were in the most controlling position in the one game that they lost of all the teams that have a loss, right? Credit to Coach Mills, credit to Merrick Hill. Another solid performance by the Mammoths.
Yeah, as you said, look, it was a close game at the half, and for a change, Amherst, instead of letting off the gas at the end of the game, they finally finished the game the way you'd
Well, it
like
was the
to
first
see.
game they weren't up by 3 scores in the second half.
That's a
There's two ways of looking at it.
good point, and really good job by them. And we both had Amherst winning this game pretty handily. They ended up winning this game pretty handedly, but it was 10-7 at the half, nip and tuck game. And kudos to the Mammoths on getting it done. And look, they're as much in the mix. They're tied for the league lead. They've got everything in front of them towards the end with the last couple games of the season. They got a tough road of it. They probably have the toughest schedule just because of the home away thing, but they're right there. They haven't finished over 500 in a couple years, and good job avenging. Last year they lost a pretty big game they lost by a lot to Bowdoin. So good job by them avenging that loss.
Yeah, 2 games left to recap from last week. Tufts and Bates wasn't our game of the week. It was probably the game of the week. Just a wild affair with points aplenty and under the lights. It seems like in this league when the lights go on, you can guarantee that there's going to be drama, there's going to be points, there's going to be action. It's going to come down to the end, and Bates did just enough to get out with a huge victory for the Bobcats as they win 35-28 on the road. And Ryan Linsky with 4 touchdowns as he finally gets his season going. And Bates was doing the things that they want to do offensively and did enough defensively to get out of Medford with a victory.
Yeah, they were down 28-21, a furious fourth quarter comeback by Bates. Linsky had over 200 yards rushing, as you said. He was this week's Gold Helmet Award winner in New England, also NESCAC Offensive Player of the Week. So just a heck of a game by him, but he wasn't the only part of the story. They had a good effort defensively. Our guest this week, Ryan Rozich, played very well. So really big win. And speaking from experience, it's a tough place to win in those night games. It's a great atmosphere. Tufts being the largest school in the NESCAC, they'll get a big crowd out for a Saturday night game under the lights, and it's a lot of fun. But you saw Tufts make the switch at quarterback to Hudson Weidman. He played very well, both throwing the ball and running the ball. I expect we're going to see a lot of him second half the season. He seems to add a different type of game to the Tufts Jumbos. But that's a big win for Bates, and that puts them in a good position to try to finish over 500 as we head into the second half of the season and now sit at 2-3.
Yeah, you mentioned Hudson Weidman, who had 74 yards on the ground and 204 in the air, 3 touchdown passes. So a guy to keep an eye on for Tufts moving forward as they try to figure out what they're doing at the signal caller position. Jack Perry forced into quarterback duty with Sergio Beltran's injury. Not necessarily going to blow your mind, but took care of the football, 8 for 20 for 85 yards and a touchdown pass. But Linsky with 32 carries for 221 and 4 touchdowns certainly earned his golden helmet this week. And as we said, Bates just figured it out. You'll hear from Ryan Rozich later on in this podcast when we interview him, but it's very clear that team has an all-in mentality collectively. And I think collectively they thought that they were going to make a jump this year. They got a great come from behind win in week 1 against Amherst. It looks better by the week. And they just haven't been able to, make those big plays down the stretch. They lost a heartbreaker against Colby 2 weeks ago, but they figured it out this week, and it's a great win for the Bobcats. But as we'll touch on a little bit later on in the show, not a lot of time to bounce back because they got a big one coming this week, but a great win, and probably the best win of the week last week when we look at the totality of the schedule. So then we go to the game that we had as our game of the week. And I think as we discussed this game, Williams and Middlebury, we both felt that Williams was a favorite, but we also felt that, listen, if you count out Middlebury, especially on the road, you're doing it at your own peril. And as I am tracking this game on Saturday, David, I'm sure you were doing the same thing from your pop-up chair in Waterville. It had those vibes like, here we go again. Middlebury's going to do what they do. They're going to go on the road and they're going to knock off a potential conference champion. And they were right there, but just couldn't quite make the play when they needed to. And Williams escaped Williamstown with a victory. That was a heck of a football game and a great win for the Eves and a tough defeat for Middlebury, who was really in that football game.
Yeah, it was our game of the week. I thought this game and the Bates Tufts game, they were both equally exciting. I was able to watch both games, so that was a lot of fun. We did catch the end of the Williams-Middlebury game live because it was a later start. I know my partner here loves those staggered starts. We were able to catch the end of that game because it was a 2:00 start, so that was good. A little heck of a game, and good job by Middlebury. Middlebury was in position to tie this game up with as
Well,
the
and it was
clock was
17-17 in the fourth quarter as well.
it was, and they gave up two long plays in this game to Zach Falls, 270+ passes, including the one with 4.5 minutes left to put Williams up. Just seemingly when Middlebury had regained the momentum on the game, Williams had missed like a 20-yard field goal that was blocked to take the lead, and then they got the ball back, and it was a long, long pass. But Middlebury was poised they got the ball back with minute 42. They had a short field. They got the ball down to the 6, first and goal from the 6-yard line. And to Williams' credit, they held them. Some of the play calls down there they ran basically the same play. Looked very similar anyway. Fades on at least 3 of the 4 plays, maybe 4 of the 4 plays. And Williams did a great job of defending that. And there was a delay of game at 3rd and goal, which was just
critical,
unbelievable. Put him back to the 11, and then Brian Moran, who's one of the better quarterbacks in the league, certainly experienced from the 6, was 0 for 4. Then he got pushed back to the 11 on 3rd down on the delay. And then he was incomplete on the 3rd down from the 11 and complete, obviously, 4th down for the 11. Kudos to Williams for holding them. Usually in those situations, you end up seeing the offense tie up the game. And here we go to overtime, and we see what happens. Obviously, Williams had an earlier overtime game with Trinity, and I thought this one was headed to overtime as well, but it wasn't to be.
Yeah, I thought the same thing as you, actually. And then what was interesting was typically you mentioned that when a team's driving like that, you expect them to score. But what was most interesting is once they got into the red zone in a goal-to-go situation, they didn't really even threaten to score. Like none of those plays really felt like touchdowns, right? Like they all felt like 4th down. Let's just throw it up and try to make a play. It didn't. They kind of lost their way a little bit there, and it'll be interesting as we cover this week. Obviously, Middlebury has one more chance to really make their impact on the league this year, and that's this week.
Yeah, and I don't mean to nitpick. You've got a really good receiver in Michael Hannon, who seems to be a really, really good on those slant from the slot.
Yeah.
And that seems to me to be the play call there. But what do I know? That I'm not a coach.
We're not gonna nitpick play calls, but yeah, you're right. Honan has been great this year, and Middlebury, they're a little bit snake bitten when it comes to just getting across the line. It hasn't gone their way this year, but we're certainly a team. No one's going into a game against Middlebury being like, "Oh, I feel good about this week." They've got enough there. They have another chance. We'll talk about that on the other side. But listen, credit Williams. Their defense needed to make it difficult for them, and they bared down when they needed to, and they made enough plays offensively. Owen Johansson did it a little differently this week. He didn't have a big rushing game. He was a guy who's averaging 10 yards a carry going into this week, and I think he ran for 17 yards this week. I might be wrong. I have to look real quick, but he threw the ball all over the yard, and yeah, he ran for 7. He threw for 217, and he ran for 19 yards this week. So he did it a little differently.
Yeah.
And John Orris was solid, and they did enough to get the job done.
Yeah, and by the way, McClellan had a hell of a game. He had 160 yards rushing. You had a timeout there at the 6.
Yeah,
You could have even had a running play to McClellan, giving it a shot. So
Yeah, it was a mistake. That's a mistake. You can't, who knows, not been there, not knowing what the clock looks like there, not knowing the circumstance. We've seen officials in this league. We don't know exactly what happened, but I'm sure they would have loved to have used that final timeout on to avoid the delay again if they could do it all over again. But listen, can't redo these things, especially without replaying in our favorite league. Dave, now that we've wrapped up this week, we got 4 teams that are 4-1. We've got Williams, Amherst. They're pretty familiar with each other. We've got Trinity, Wesleyan. They know each other pretty well. And what do you know? Most of those teams still have to play each other. So we've got plenty to touch up on as we move forward. We'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, Dave will give his power rankings and his midseason grades, and then we will preview week 6 of 9 weeks. So back in just a minute with more 9 weeks here on Official NESCAC Football Podcast. Welcome back to 9 weeks here on Official NESCAC Football Podcast. Alongside the NESCAC man, Dave Bagatelle, I'm Chris Grace. We welcome back into our podcast a familiar face, the head coach of the Williams Eves, Mark Raymond, on the backs of a hard-fought victory over Middlebury as your team got a big red zone stand. I wouldn't call it a goal line stand, but it was right on the verge of a goal line stand to win that football game against a really tough Middlebury team, as you guys are sat perched atop a 4-way tie with everything to play for as the season goes on. Coach, we got a lot to talk about. Real quick, let's just touch on that game. That was a classic NESCAC football game on Saturday, and you guys did just enough to get across the line.
Yeah, thanks for having me on first, guys. Dave, Chris, really appreciate you guys bringing me out tonight. Yeah, that was a hell of a game. Middlebury we've seen to have great games with them every year. Just a top group of kids every year, well coached, and this year was no different. Fortunately, we were able to, as you said, make a stand at the end and come out with a win.
Yeah, and looking at that game, just looking at the box score, I got to catch probably the last drive and a half of the game because I had other things going on, obviously. But one thing that stood out to me was looking at your quarterback compared to the rest of the season. He didn't have his biggest rushing game, but he really took care of the ball through the air. Can you talk about the development that you've seen from Owen as a guy who you're looking at to almost be like a Wildcat plus quarterback to a guy who now is a bona fide dual threat who you can lean on really throwing the football?
Yeah, absolutely. He's really comes really with great work ethic he's had and learning his craft and getting better as a passer. Obviously, he's very smart, so he's picked up the offense very well. He understands game plans. He's certainly a special kid and player, and his teammates have a great chemistry right now. And like I say, he's really developed into a quarterback with a lot of different skills.
Yeah, I remember we came into the season. Obviously, we had John preseason, and here we are 5 weeks in. And I know one of the things we talked about was your receiving core. I know you had some injuries in the preseason, and here we are. You weren't sure who's going to be that guy, and I think you found that guy in Zach Falls. He had 2 really long touchdown catches against Middlebury. Frankly, the difference in the game, if it wasn't for Ryan Linsky having one of those 200-something yard games and 4 touchdowns, I think Zach would have easily been the NESCAC Offensive Player of the Week and certainly had a great week. Talk a little bit about him and the development of your receiving core and what he's meant to the team this year.
Yeah, as you mentioned, we have a few guys get dinged up. Zach came into training camp in great shape. He had a great summer, worked really hard, becoming a really good route runner, pass catcher. And that showed up for him. It was just a matter of learning the offense, creating some chemistry with our quarterbacks. And he has really shown he can go get football, high point the ball, finish after making the catch. But once again, the guy who was really worked tremendously hard to become a really good player.
And we talk about this, it seems, every week, and we touched on it before the season. We thought that this was the potential for it to be the most wide open this league has ever been because there was so much turnover at the quarterback position. And there's so many of those kind of COVID guys that are phasing out. So it's almost like it's a traditional year now, right? Where you're recruiting your guys, they're 4-year players, etc. But we had no idea that there were going to be no undefeated teams after 3 weeks. We certainly didn't think that there was going to be this much parity in the league. But you look now, there's 4 teams that are 4-1. You guys have played Trinity, but you still play Amherst, obviously, and you play Wesleyan. So you still have complete control over your destiny. But you look at your schedule, there's no weeks off in this league. You guys have to You guys have to take a trek to Maine and play a Bates team that does things differently than other teams. And obviously, Bags just mentioned the week that Ryan Linsky had, who was the best running back in the league last year, and he had his breakout game for this year last week. Talk about the challenges that you guys are facing as you prepare to play Bates on the road in a game that you really need to win to keep pace with everyone else in the league.
Yeah, no question. Linsky's a problem. He runs hard. He's physical. He's a real tough kid with great balance too. Really has a nose to finish runs. You never really see him go backwards. So he's certainly someone that's on our list. And McClellan kid from Middlebury and him are very similar. Real powerful kids with great balance. Base could beat anybody, obviously, and they have beat a couple of good teams this year. So for us to go up there, our guys know it's a heck of a challenge. They're a very physical team. They play really hard, and they complement that, but have a lot of good players. We certainly know we're going to be in it on Saturday.
Yeah, I wasn't going to ask a question about Bates, but they're certainly hungry. They haven't had a 500 season in 12 or 13 years, and they're on the cusp of that. You know that they can smell that. They don't want to be coming for blood, that's for sure.
No question about it. Back bowl coming off a really big win Saturday night. We know we're going to get their best shot.
Yeah, what I find interesting about your team is just the versatility, right? We were talking before he came on, how Owen J. Hansen was recruited as a quarterback, but you moved him to tight end and he played a little bit of wildcat, of course. And then McHugh went down. And then, of course, Owen Johansson stepped in full-time quarterback and he's playing really high level. And then I saw this week that Luke Mangini has been a really great inside linebacker who's playing some defensive end this week, which probably a little different for him following in his dad's footsteps. Wesleyan, great defensive lineman, of course. Yes. Eric, I play with his brother, Kyle, so know the Mangini family. Talk a little bit about what it is. It seems like Williams, this isn't the first year that you've done that. You've had a lot of versatility, a lot of kids playing a lot of different positions. Of course, you have the defensive back who's dinged up right now, plays wide receiver. So you've done that quite a bit. You got guys playing all over the field, a lot of versatility.
Yeah, that's part of it. We got to recruit the versatility, right? Guys who can have varied skill sets, can help you special teams and possibly play both ways. Like you said, Poland's played some receivers and we played every down offense and defense our first 3 games. And Justice McGrail did a lot of the same. And Luke is an interesting player. He's very powerful, runs well, so he can handle being on the line of scrimmage because of his strength and toughness. So we had to make a move this week, and he did a really good job making that adjustment against Middlebury.
Yeah, and you look at the way this league is structured right now, and we talked about like the teams that are at the top of the league. If you can just quickly touch on how different it is since you've been in the league, looking at just the overall depth from 1 through 10 in this league, because it seems, there have been a few outliers, but for the most part, week in, week out, there's no blowouts in this league. It really seems to be balancing itself out. From a coach's perspective, I'm sure you never went into any game week and say, oh, this is going to be a cupcake or whatever. Now it's not coach speak. It really is that balanced in this league.
Yeah, no doubt. Really, it starts with the commitment from these schools. All the schools in this league have made a commitment to football, and you can tell. I've been in some other leagues before. It's a really well-coached league. There's some top to bottom, from head coaches to coordinators, position coaches. You can attract good coaches at these schools. And next comes players. You have good coaches who can attract good players to high-level, world-class academic schools like this. You can really create a league that's tough top to bottom. So when you see that commitment from all these schools, it makes for a really tough league.
Last question for me, Coach, because I know you got a lot going on. It's Wednesday night. You're busy, so I don't want to take too much of your time. But we've got the last 4 weeks here. Obviously, this year, nobody's going to the D3 playoffs out of the NESCAC. Next year, we will, of course. So it's almost like the playoffs, right? With Amherst, Wesleyan, Williams, and Trin all playing each other pretty much these last 4 weeks. What should we be looking for? What can we expect?
That's a great question. I wish I knew, Dave. You're going to see, I think you're just going to see really good football, real competitive football down to the wire here. You're seeing some teams really grow into themselves. You're seeing teams that get banged up. There's a lot of volatility that's going to happen these next couple weeks. Well, like I said, we're just really looking at Bates right now, and they're looking at us, and everybody's trying to take it one game at a time. But I do think you're going to see some great football, some really good playmaking, and teams really competing at a high level.
Coach, as Dave said, I'll echo his sentiment. We know you've got stuff to do, but we certainly appreciate you taking a few minutes of your time as you get ready for another big game, going on the road to take on Bates. It's not going to be an easy task, but I know that you have a team that's balanced and up for the challenge, and we'll be watching from afar and certainly looking forward to see that result. And I know Dave will see in a few weeks when you guys take on Wesleyan in the Little Three, and hopefully you guys can catch up then. But best of luck this weekend, and thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time as always.
Yeah, absolutely, guys. Thanks again for having me on. Really appreciate what you guys do for the league here.
Thank you very much, Coach.
Thanks,
that is
Coach.
the head coach
sir.
of the
Take care.
Eves. Mark Raymond will be back with more 9 Weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast, right after this. This episode of 9 Weeks NESCAC Football is sponsored by Sloan Walsh LLP. On the gridiron, victories come from preparation, smart play calling, and a defense you can trust. For 91 years, Sloan Walsh has brought that same approach to the legal field, especially when the game is toughest in insurance disputes. They know how to protect the end zone, move the chains, and deliver results when it matters most, from complex litigation to safeguarding what matters to you. Their team is built to go the distance. Sloan Walsh LLP. Trusted counsel, championship effort. Visit sloanwalsh.com to learn more. This episode of 9 Weeks NESCAC is brought to you in collaboration with Game Day Sports. Transform your game day experience with Game Day Sports, your ultimate partner in celebrating athletic excellence. They collaborate with teams and parent groups to create memorable keepsakes for every fan and player. From personalized parents' lanyards to giant heads to senior banners that cheer on your favorite players, their custom print pieces capture the spirit and passion of your team. Their beautifully designed programs are packed full of essential information that every NESCAC fan eagerly anticipates, making them cherished keepsakes for supporters and players alike. With over 25 years of experience, trust Game Day Sports to bring your team's story to life in vibrant print, ensuring every game day is one to remember. Welcome back to 9 Weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast. Alongside the NESCAC man, Dave Bagatelle, I'm Chris Grace, and we welcome in Bates Bobcat linebacker and reigning NESCAC Special Teams Player of the Week, Ryan Rozich. And Ryan, first and foremost, listen, Dave gets lots of Jersey guys on this podcast. I've got a Central Connecticut guy who knows what it means to steam a cheeseburger. Welcome. I am so pumped to have you on. Welcome to our podcast. Congrats on the big win, and congrats on an unlikely Special Teams Player of the Week bid you got this week. Has to feel good for you guys to get back in the W column, as you've had some tough losses this year as you continue to grow this program. But talk about what that win meant on the road under the lights in Medford.
Yeah, so thank you guys for having me on and giving me the opportunity to speak. And as you met, that win was truly something that was very special for our program. And beyond the football field, where we also have two of our safeties and two of our brothers are going through something right now with deep family issues. I don't know how they were able to play. They stayed strong. They were able to play, and just getting that win, especially for those two dudes, that means so much to this team.
So Ryan, obviously you focus on the defensive side of the football. It must have been great to see your offense really find their footing. Obviously, you guys rely on running the football. And last year you had some great success running the football. You've had a massive injury at the quarterback position, but it felt like your offense really figured things out. Talk about from a defensive perspective what it's like when you see your offense putting up those kind of rushing numbers, and it gives you a free lease on life to just really get after it defensively.
Definitely, they put on a performance this past week. Linsky having an amazing game, our offensive line, and also our receivers. I think that's something that's truly special to look at, is how our receivers block past the line of scrimmage. And it's truly a group effort. All 11 dudes on that side of the ball, they're going after it. And definitely in that game, as from the defensive side of the ball, we let up a couple shot plays, a couple explosive plays that, we felt we gave them some points on the board. And seeing our offense being able to march down the field and winning that physical battle on the line of scrimmage and being able to really impose their will on another team and putting up 35 points, that was awesome. And as you said, it really gives our defense this sort of cushion and this ability to rely on our offense and to know that if we mess up, they're going to dig us out of these holes. And it was awesome to truly see them spark on that side of the ball. And I know for these next 4 games coming up, they're gonna continue that, and they're gonna put up some serious points.
Yeah, interesting. As we were talking before, I watched the game, and I'm sure during the week you're preparing for Justin Keller to play quarterback. They obviously pivoted to Hudson Weedman, who plays a little bit different game than Keller. Did that have an impact on your game plan? As I was a defensive player myself, how did that impact what you guys were doing on defense against Tufts?
Yeah, definitely. So we came into the game thinking that they were going to try to run the ball down our throat. We came in knowing that we had to win the line of scrimmage and we had to dominate the run game and stop that. And they took a different approach. They were trying to they hit us with a lot of play action, trying to suck us up and trying to take the top off. But we were able to respond. We let up a couple plays that we definitely want back, but huge plays from Sam Christopher snagging that interception, and then obviously Mike's major Spence at the end of the game getting that interception. So we were able to come up with the plays when we needed to. And also I think we held them to 4 of 14 on 3rd down. So we were able to get off the field and once again, give the ball back to our offense, who were able to go down and put some points up on the board.
Yeah, that's obviously a critical stat. As we shift a little bit here, obviously you had a great game, reigning NESCAC All Defensive guy. You had 12 tackles last week, but talk about what that's like where you're just hanging out. You're used to getting a little breather when it comes to the special team side of things, and all of a sudden your number's called and you have to be a long snapper. Do you have any background snapping the football? How did that situation present itself?
Yeah, I snapped a little bit in my couple of games in my senior year of high school. And then big motto on our team is just when your name's called, you got to come up and you got to fill that role. You got to do your 111. So Dominic Varelli, our long snapper, he's been the most consistent dude on the team for the last 3 years. And when he unfortunately went down with an injury, it was my time to step up and fill that role and pick up my brother. And I think this also gets back to me taking some reps in practice, going out there. And it's very easy to think as I'm taking long snapping reps in practice, oh, I'm never going to get on the field. I'm never going to have to do this in a game. But as you saw, my number got called and I had to go in there and fill that role for my team. So it's, again, important to just take these practice reps because those reps ultimately prepared me to go into the game, fill that role, and be successful.
Yeah, so Ryan, obviously you're a captain, you're one of the leaders of the team as a junior. Kudos to that. You're sitting here 2-3. You've played a lot of really good football teams the first half of the season. Obviously, you can't, or every team, every week is tough in this league. Anybody can beat anybody, as you guys have certainly proven last year. You beat the league champion. That was one of your 2 wins. This year, you guys are on the cusp of potentially 500 or better season, first time in a real long time. I know that's a big goal of the program to get to the next level. Talk about these last 4 weeks and what the mindset of the team is as you head into sort of the second half of the season.
From the start, I think our goal every single week is to go 1-0. And we're trying to chase big things at this program. Our ultimate goal is to win that NESCAC championship. We go into every single game, every single one of these weeks, and we know that if we play our best football, we can beat anyone in this league. And as we prepare for each week, our goal, like I said, is 1-0. And we know that if everyone is doing their job, everyone's completing their 111th, and we play to our potential, we can take down any single one of these teams in this league. And so as we move forward into the second half of the season, we're continuing with this mindset, taking it one game at a time. We have a big game coming up against Williams, and our goal is to win this game and most importantly, stack 2 wins on each other. And we think that'll be the next step in our program. And we have a big opportunity, and we're going to get it done.
That's a great segue. Thank you for that. Because you look at your season last year, most people would look at 2-7. That's not a good year. But then you look at the 2 teams you beat, two of the 3 that you beat, the last 2 NESCAC champions, and obviously couldn't figure out ways to win the other games. But that comes with experience. That comes with consistency on a week in, week out basis. And what you guys haven't been able to do is build on some of these big wins you've had, right? Even look at this year. You beaten Amherst and Tufts, 2 great teams. Now, no weeks off, right? Like you're right back at it and you have to play Williams. This Williams team is as balanced of a team as there is in the NESCAC, in my opinion. And it starts with their quarterback play. There's no bigger dual threat player in the league than Owen Johansson at this point. From a linebacker's perspective, obviously your focus is, I would imagine, first and foremost, stopping the quarterback run play. but they've got a great tailback, and now they've really opened up their offense throwing the football. So I'm sure there's some sleepless nights this week as you get ready for a really big game against the Eeps at home.
Yeah, definitely. We're very excited with this opportunity that we have. And coming into this game, we know that the game is going to be won at the line of scrimmage on both sides of the football. We are looking to out physical them and to come in and really win this game in the trenches. And we know if we can do that, then if we can come in, stop the run, impose our will, then we will ultimately be successful in this game. So that is our huge emphasis this week in practice, and we're going to get it done.
Awesome. Just going to last question for me, but I want to shift gears a little bit here. Obviously, as we talked about, you're from Central Connecticut. You ended up going to Bates College, which is a little bit of a drive away. How did that happen? And what are you studying in school? And what do you hope to do post Bates someday?
Me coming to Bates, I think it was definitely that meeting when I sat down with Coach Coyne. He's truly amazing. And in that meeting, I truly felt that he was going to care for us. He cared for every single one of these people. And he also presented me, laid out the whole script, how he was going to change this program and make it into a successful football team. And I wanted to be a part of this. I wanted to take the ride and help turn what this school and what this football team is commonly known about, and to turn this into a championship winning program. So he truly inspired me, and he's inspired all of these guys in our locker room. And he was a huge part of me coming to Bates, and do anything for that man. He's just a great coach, and I can't say enough great things about him. And then, so currently I'm studying political science at Bates, and I'm thinking about attending or post-grad. I'm thinking about going to law school.
That's great. And of course, we know, Ryan, where Coach Coyne went to school undergrad, right?
Yep, he definitely.
Got to get that in there, right, Chris?
Hey, you never miss a moment.
I'd disappoint if I didn't. I got to take that.
This is good for me, Ryan, because typically what we have on this show is we have guys that are from Jersey.
Yeah.
And then Dave asks them what they want to do, and they say, "Oh, I'd really like to get into finance or banking." And Dave smiles and says, "I know somebody because I have 40 years of experience in banking and finance." Well, in this case, I got a Central Connecticut guy who knows what it's like to eat a weird steamed cheeseburger, and also hit your boy up when you become a lawyer. I got your back, dog. So
Thank you. I appreciate it.
we'll be good. We'll be good to go. It's my kind of guy. Listen, Ryan, we appreciate you taking some time, and we wish you the best of luck. I know you got a lot to do, both in school and to get ready for this game. Been a great guest, man. It's so great to connect with another outstanding student athlete in the NESCAC. And I know Dave for sure. There's going to be a lot going on Saturday. I'll be calling a game, but Dave will, and we'll all be paying attention from afar. And we wish you the best of luck against the Eeps. So go get them, bud.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk. Have a good night.
Absolutely. Good luck on Saturday, Ryan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Dave and I will be back with more 9 weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast, right after this as we get ready for another week in the NESCAC. Welcome back to 9 weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast, alongside the NESCAC man, Dave Bagatelle. I'm Chris Grace, and we are giving you a bonus guest this week. It is our third guest of the broadcast. We have John Keith, who is the founder and the orchestrator of the NESCAC Football Report, as we are trying to continue to grow the brand here on 9 weeks. Who better to talk to than John, who is someone who has covered the NESCAC for a long time. John, first and foremost, it's great to have you on our little podcast. We certainly appreciate it. For the viewers who may or may not be familiar, give a quick synopsis of your journey, where your interest in NESCAC football came from, and how you started doing a weekly NESCAC football blog, Football Report.
Well, yeah, I appreciate, first of all, big fan of this podcast. Really love the work you guys do, and appreciate you having me on. Yeah, it was a bit of a passion project for me. My father went to a NESCAC school, and then my oldest son went to a NESCAC school, so I'm familiar with the league. My kids were getting older. I had a little free time, and I looked around. I love football. I love doing analysis. And I actually went to visit with my son. I was going to a game, and I was going to do some research, and I found next to nothing on the internet. And I said, this is an opportunity. I have a good friend of mine from college who really creative, can set up websites. I can't do that. I don't have those technical skills. He got me going. I created NESCACFootballReport.com in 23. I've been doing it for now 2.5 seasons. And really what I do is there's 3 major areas. I do previews, where I do interviews of the coaches, walk through the positions, the different strengths of the team, questions going the year. Then I do a weekly preview where I do key factors in the game. After 2 weeks, I do power rankings, much like you do. I do paragraphs where I have some details. And then lastly, on Sundays, I do game recaps, which kind of distill down the game, what are the key factors, who are the top players. And it gives my readers an opportunity to, like, in one page or one scan down, get a good holistic view of what's happened in the league. And I've really enjoyed it. It's really a fun league. And then obviously I picked up, trying to get more information. I picked up this podcast and saw what you guys were doing and reached out to Dave, and appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, and of course, in keeping with a theme here in the program, we do have that Jersey connection, John.
Yes, born and raised. Born and raised, yes.
And we love that.
Yes.
We love that. But we balanced this out because we did have a Connecticut guy on this week, so we're good.
There we go. There you go.
But yeah, no, John, we appreciate you coming on, and it's really, really great meeting you. And we got to hang out a little bit a couple weeks ago up at the West Tailgate, and you really are. It's always good speaking with somebody who's as passionate and interested about NESCAC football. There aren't that many of us out there. This isn't the Big Ten, but that's for darn sure. It's probably not even the Centennial or Liberty League. But so it's great to have you. Great to meet you. I love the site. Talk a little bit about how you do your research and how you put that together every week. You have some really, I have to tell you, you have some great insights. You pick up some really interesting stats, some really interesting trends, some things that people maybe don't see, a lot of good analytics. And then, like you said, this is a league where there isn't a ton of information out there. So I assume you're doing a lot of this research yourself.
Yeah, I'm basically grinding through the numbers, the data that comes out of the different games. I'll probably watch a game a week type of thing, depending upon who's playing. So it is basically looking at statistics from each of the game, breaking those down, going through a process. As you said, it's not a huge community. My kids often joke to me, they're both of the people looking at your website kind of joke, but I enjoy it and I go through it. And I think it's an area where, again, I think back to where I was going and there's absolutely nothing. I put myself in the shoes, if I were somebody going to a Wesleyan game or a Colby game or a Bowdoin game, and I just want quickly to get up to speed and get some perspectives, I'd go there. And I love the analysis. I love football. It's a fun league. As you guys know, it's a unique league and I have the history with it through my family. It's something I really enjoy doing.
It's a great perspective because as someone who broadcasts games in this league, not just in football, but in all the sports, there are certain years where I'm very fired up and motivated and I'm looking for content and it's not there. So your point is 100% right, because my father always tells me, he says, I think that is the most fun league, maybe not in America, but in this region, because it's basically got all the qualities of high school football, what you love about high school football, but it's better football, right? There's a camaraderie, there's tailgating, you got people that are driving 6, 7, 8 hours. Dave maybe drives 10 hours to Waterville or what. I don't know what your longest drive is. Waterville, how long was that drive?
Yeah, it was because it was Columbus Day weekend. It was Leaf weekend. It was about 8 hours. Yeah.
He's putting in an 8-hour trip and he has no kids. He's in it for the ring, baby. He's just in it for the love of the game.
Proud alum.
Yeah, of course. But where else would you see that, right? That's a great league. There's really talented players. We're seeing that when we're seeing these guys in this new transfer portal era. We're seeing the guys from the NESCAC that are transferring to theirs. It's great football and it's a great league. And for the most part, these are student athletes that are playing for the love of the game. And this is an opportunity for them to do this for 4 years before they embark on probably a great successful career in whatever industry they might. There's a purity to it that's fantastic. And I commend you for being drawn to that and finding this niche. As we pivot, though, my question for you is, because we typically talk to coaches and we talk to players that are connected to specific programs. How do you feel about where the NESCAC is right now? Where do you think that the league is shaping up? And we'll dive a little deeper, but obviously there's 4 kind of perennial powers that happen to be positioned atop the league right now. We didn't know that it was going to be that way with all the turnover we saw in this league, but what are your takes on what you've seen so far this year, what you've obviously followed when it comes to stats and analytics, but where do you think the league is right now?
Yeah, I think it's in a really good place. I think the main schools have elevated to some extent their profiles from historically, and I think they've invested with really good coaches. I think I agree with you. It's a bit top heavy. I think you've got obviously Trinity, which has been a power, and you have Jackson Carroll there ascending. So that's a team that's obviously very formidable. I've been impressed with Wesleyan, not just because Dave's on the line, but they lost a lot of players. So they lost the quarterback, they lost the wide receiver, they lost their entire offensive line, 6 or 7 people in their back patrol, and they haven't skipped a beat. They really haven't. And Kelly's an incredibly exciting player there. So they're a great story. Williams with Johansson has been really impressive, the way they've run the ball, and then he proves he could throw the ball. And Amherst has been a huge surprise to me. I thought they were going to get better, not to the level they have. And you did really enjoyed your interview of Merrick Hill. Very impressive. All the kids are impressive, but a really impressive young man. He's elevated that program and much faster than I thought they were going to be. I thought there might have been a step before where they are, so they've been impressive. It's a good league. It's a fun league. And I think the way it's shaping up down the stretch, you have a lot of those top 3 or 4 teams playing each other, which is going to make, I think, the last, week 7, 8, 9 really exciting in this league.
So that's actually where I was going to head as a great segue. You are an impartial observer. How do you see this sort of playing out the last 3 weeks? Other than Bryn has already played Williams, but other than that, they're all playing each other. We're going to have a 1-loss team for sure win the league. Maybe a 2-loss team, maybe a tie. How do you see this playing out these last couple of weeks?
It's tough. You're the king prognosticator, so this is some pressure. I think Amherst, if you look at the 4th team, they have a really tough stretch. They have Colby this week, and then I think they go to Wesleyan, they go to Trinity, and they're home. Obviously, they finish up the year with their arch rival Williams. I think they've made great strides. I think that's a really tough road for them. So they probably, I'd be surprised if they got there. The other 3, it's really tough to tell. I would give Wesleyan and Trinity a little bit of an edge just because I think Williams' defense, particularly the pass defense, isn't on par with the others. So if I'm going to nitpick among 3 really outstanding teams, I think Holden Gehring hasn't played for them, which is probably a factor as well. So I think it may come down to that last weekend in the Middletown when Trinity plays West. That's my guess, but I wouldn't count out Merrick Hill. I wouldn't count out Owen Johansson, to be honest with you. So those are 2 really impressive guys. But that'd be my gun to my head. I think that's where I'd go, Trinity West to again, just like last year, see where that shakes out.
Yeah, and to your point, we talk about the balance of this league, but you look at the other teams, right? You got Middlebury playing Trinity this week. Guess who's been the thorn in Trinity's side? It's been Middlebury. And you look at like Colby is a team that nobody really wants to play. Bates is a team that nobody really wants to play. There's a ton of balance, and I don't think that they're in this deep. A lot of it is traditional, but if you could ask the people who are making the schedules if they could have drawn it up, I mean, they couldn't have drawn it up any better. It's really set up to be a spectacular last 4 weeks of the year.
Yeah, really looking forward to those last 3 weeks. Definitely some great games.
Yeah. And while we have a second, tell everyone how they can access your content.
Sure. NESCACFootballReport.com. So you just put it in there. It's on the internet. I have reached out. I do have a reach out program through Instagram and X. So I post my things there. So I have a website, or I'm showing my technological deficiencies, but I have accounts there and profiles there. So when I push things out, I usually post that there so people can link through it. But that's been my approach. And so generally, end of the day, Sunday, I get my game recaps out. Wednesday's the day I get my weekly previews as well as my power rankings out. And then the previews are all preseason. No, it's been a lot of fun to do it. And again, I appreciate you guys having me on. You guys do a great job with your podcast. You have some great guests, and it goes back to the strength of this league. You have some really good coaches. I get to talk to them once a year. Really knowledgeable, good people. And then the student athletes are obviously very impressive young men.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's really great that we're now collaborating together. We appreciate you putting my picks on there, not Chris's picks, just my picks.
You don't want to put just winners on there. You don't want to make it easy.
We'll be
Nobody
very
wants
clear
all
about
winners.
that.
It's boring.
But we're trying to support each other. There isn't a lot of NESCAC content out there, so I think it's important for us all to be in this together. And I think the parents and the alums and the student athletes appreciate that. I think they like the attention. I think they like to get some of the information themselves, and we have a little bit of fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
John, I got one last thing for you. So on a week-to-week basis, are you going to a game every week? Are you watching the games? Are you doing NXN on the apps? What are you doing on a
I'm
Saturday?
mostly watching on my computer. So I'm home and just watching. I try to go to 1 or 2 games a year. You
Okay.
guys were kind enough to host me up in Middletown for that game. That was I had a lot of fun up there, but usually one a year going to it. And then, yeah, it's all video and going through the stats.
We appreciate your time, but I know I have a feeling what Dave's going to say. If it all comes down to the final week of the year, we'd love to have you for Trinity Wesleyan, and we'll touch base then. Is that where you're
absolutely.
going, Dave?
And as an added bonus, John, that's our big turducken game.
Turducken, that's right.
Oh, there we go. A little
do the
John Madden.
He honors John Madden every single Trinity Wesleyan game.
We do the turducken on the old grill. It's the Battle of the Birds. So we have a little turducken, a little bantam stuff with some cardinal.
Absolutely. Sounds great. Again, I'm a huge fan of your podcast. Appreciate you guys having me on. You guys do a great job, and look forward to staying connected in the NESCAC football community.
Awesome. We appreciate your time. That's John Keith. He runs the NESCAC Football Report. Make sure you check out his site. It's awesome. There's all sorts of great stuff on there, and we'll connect with John as the season goes on. It's great to have a neutral observer, so I look forward to that because I certainly don't have one that co-hosts this podcast. Well, John, we'll take a quick break. We'll be back with more of your 9 weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast right after this. Welcome back to 9 weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast, alongside Dave Bagatelle, the man who may or may not be known as the NESCAC man. We'll see. Listen, he should be known as the NESCAC man who picks it pretty good, but maybe not as good as some others. I don't know. We'll find out. But all things aside, just kidding. Obviously, he is the man who knows more about NESCAC football than anyone else, and he's going to give you his power rankings as we head into week 6 of 9. My math is a struggle. Dave, we look at these, we talk every week about the balance of this league and where the dust is going to settle. I don't think we probably would have had the power rankings where they are right now at the beginning of the year, but there's some familiar faces and maybe some teams we thought were going to rise up that we're still waiting to see how the season's going to play out. But if you were to back up 10 years ago, it might have been a pretty similar power rankings, I think, if I was to guess. Tell me how you see it shaping up here in week 5.
Yeah, not a lot of movement. In fact, at the top of the rankings, basically no movement. Everybody pretty much held serve. The week played out, I'd say, with the exception of one game, exactly as we thought. Trinity, obviously, as we talked about earlier, had their way with Hamilton. They remain as our number 1 ranked team. Most impressive things for me last week for Trinity was they outgained Hamilton 539 to 184. 9 different bantams had catches. 9 different bantams ran the ball. And the most impressive thing to me against the top-rated passing offense in the NESCAC, which is not really something you usually use with the Hamilton Continentals, but of course they have Luke Curzum. Trinity held Hamilton 106 yards passing, really good. And so Trinity stays in my top spot. Our second-ranked team, or my second-ranked team, as they were last year, is Wesleyan. They've really looked great passing the ball. In particular, they're the number 2 ranked scoring offense, but they're also the number 1 ranked scoring defense. So they're playing really great defense. I think the one thing that if I was Wesleyan and I had a sort of wish list for the second half is I want to run the ball a little bit better. There's been glimmers of that, and I think that's something to look for this week. We'll talk about their game against Bowdoin later, but I think Wesleyan would like to get the ground game going. But a really, really impressive. They were 7 for 12 on third down against Colby. They were 4 for 4 in the red zone. By the way, they've been really excellent in the red zone at converting. I think they're either 1 or 2 in the red zone this year in the NESCAC. And by the way, big thing for them, they're not turning the ball over, which is huge. And their offensive line is just playing at a very high level. They're not giving up many sacks, and they're giving Matt Fitzsimons the time to throw the ball and spot the receivers, check down to his second and third option at times. Really impressive. As far as our third-ranked team, just as they were last week, is Williams. They are our number 1 ranked running team in the NESCAC by far. Their offensive line really deserves some love. Not only are they leading the NESCAC in rushing, but they've only allowed 1 sack all year, and they're averaging 5.8 yards per carry. So really strong. And their front seven is on the defense side has been really great because they're leading the NESCAC in sacks. They must be love to go to one of their practices and watch their O-line go against their D-line. That's probably a lot of fun to watch. Go over there on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. They've got obviously a lot of tough games ahead of them on the schedule, but they've been really good this year, and they're in our third spot. Our fourth ranked team is probably, from my standpoint, the biggest surprise this year in the NESCAC was the Amherst Mammoths. They are 4-1 also. They have a share of the NESCAC lead. Really, the big difference starts and stops. Big difference for them this year starts and stops in my mind at the quarterback position. It's been night and day, completely different for them there, and I think that's made a huge difference in the team. Their obviously time of possession is better. They're not turning over the ball as much. And Merrick Hill has been really spectacular, not only throwing the ball, but running the ball. He's been shown really great leadership skills. Their defense, frankly, the last couple of years and this year has been really good. It's been the offense. The defense has been spending way too much time on the field. The offense was turning the ball over too much, putting the defense in really precarious situations. And once again, just like with Williams, their offense, not only have they been getting really good quarterback play, but their offensive line's playing a lot better. They've only allowed 3 sacks. The one thing I think that they to do a little bit better in the second half is play a little bit better pass defense. And there are a couple teams they've got coming up on their schedule, such as Wesleyan, who could throw the ball pretty well. So that'll be interesting to watch. Our fifth ranked team is Middlebury at 2-3. Probably one of the teams that's probably, if you ask Coach Manigo, probably disappointed with that. They're usually right in the mix. And at 2-3, I think with 4-1 teams ahead of them, they're going to have a tough time getting into the mix. And they really, there's never been a 2-loss NESCAC champion, let alone a 3-loss NESCAC champion. I'd say they're pretty much out of the NESCAC title hunt at this point, but they're certainly going to play a role of spoiler, and they're a dangerous team with Brian Moran at quarterbacks, and McClellan's good and Ahonen's good. They're going to be, the passing game has been very good. I'm sure they're not used to playing that role, but that spoiler role will start this weekend when they travel to Hartford to play Trinity. Our sixth ranked spot was a team that I thought was going to make a big leap this year, and I think you can see them playing better. They're in a position to get to that 500 mark. Is the Bates Bobcats. They're 2-3, coming off a big win at Tufts. They're playing better. They have a number of winnable games for them down the stretch. Ryan Linsky, who was last year's leading rusher in the NESCAC, is now leading the NESCAC again in rushing. Their ground game seems to be picking up. They've gotten a couple of their injured offensive linemen back, and their defense is playing pretty well. The one thing that I think they need to do a little bit better on the offensive side of the ball is when they do pass, and they're primarily a running team, they run the flex option. They've got to do a better job of protecting Jack Perry. I think with getting some of those offensive linemen back, I think you're going to see them protect Perry a little bit better when he does have to drop back and pass. Our seventh ranked team, dropping from 5th last week, is Tufts, who lost, of course, to Bates. They're at 2-3. They've made the change at quarterback to sophomore Hudson Weidman. He looked very good last week. Dual threat kind of player, running and passing. He had a lot of their offense. Obviously, Christian Shapiro, running back, gives them and Matt Rios, a receiver, gives them a formidable collection of skill players. Also 3 losses. They're going to have a tough time getting back into the hunt for an NESCAC title this year. But I think the Jumbos at this point, with going to Weidman, they're starting to look towards the 2026 season. 8th ranked team is Colby. Colby is also 2-3. They had that big win in week 1. They've been 1-3 since that game. The defense has been good. The offense has struggled. They're 9th in the NESCAC in scoring and in total offense. Last week, they only had 1 TD, and they only had 8 first downs on the day. As I said, they only had 20 yards passing. They've struggled a little bit on offense. They've got to get the offense going and figure some things out there to complement their decent defense. Our 9th ranked team is Hamilton. They're 1-4. They started the season pretty well, playing a couple of relatively close games and losses, and they won a game. As I said earlier, they've lost their 2 games the last 2 weeks by a combined score of 14-105 to Wesleyan and to Trinity. The most difficult part of their schedule is over. They do have Luke Curzum, which always will give them, and they have some decent receivers, which will always give them a puncher's chance. The defense just has to play better. They've given up the most points in the NESCAC. They've given up the most yards in the NESCAC. And they've also not run the ball, particularly in their last, as a result, their last in time of possession. So I think the second half of the season, they've got to get a little bit more balance, got to be able to run the ball better to at least have that as a threat so the teams have to respect the run and can't just don't sit back there in a nickel or dime coverage and wait for Curzum to throw the ball. And then lastly, our 10th ranked team as they've been is Bowdoin. They're 0-5. They're playing a lot of young kids. They're trying to figure out the quarterback position. They're last in scoring offense. They're ninth in scoring defense. They've definitely struggled. Angus Leary has played very well for them. He does lead the NESCAC in sacks. Kudos to him on that. They're trying to figure some things out. I think for Bowdoin, what I think they'd like to see is some incremental progress over these last 4 weeks. Play games a little bit closer. Start to get a little bit more consistency on offense. Stop some people on defense. It doesn't get easier for them. They're traveling to Middletown to play Wesleyan this week. They don't match up particularly well against Wesleyan. We'll talk a little bit. We'll preview that game later, but they're going to have their hands full this Saturday, I think. Chris, overall, it's been a really, I can't believe we're more than halfway done with the season. It's been a great first half of the season. I think the last 3 games in particular, if everybody takes care of business this week, which I expect they will, is going to be really exciting. I'm really looking forward to it as a huge NESCAC fan, looking forward to seeing all these teams play each other, and whoever wins the championship this year is certainly going to earn it. There's no question about it. They're going to have to win the games in front of them, and it should be a lot of fun.
There you have it. He's not just a NESCAC man, he's a NESCAC fan. Those are his power rankings. No one knows the league better than Dave Bagatelle. We'll take a real quick break, then Dave and I will preview the action coming up this weekend on 9 Weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast. Welcome back to 9 Weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast, alongside the NESCAC band, Dave Bagatelle. Chris Grace back with you. We want to thank all of our guests for being a part of this podcast. This is what everyone tunes in to see. They want to know who the NESCAC man picks, and then they want to know who I correctly pick as we get ready for, I'm just kidding, another week of NESCAC football. All right, Dave. This is like an aperitif, right?
Exactly.
Listen, we look at the schedule. I think it's very similar to last week's. I think there's a scenario where you and I are going to align on all 5 picks, but I think there's probably at least 3 games that have some real juice here, maybe even 4. But there's one game I think that there's a very decisive favorite, and that's the game that we're both going to be at. I'm going to be on the call. It's Wesleyan and Bowdoin. Obviously, we've talked about it. Wesleyan's stacked, and Bowdoin is struggling to find their way. I don't think we have to go into too much detail here, but Wesleyan's a big favorite. Give us the point spread. I don't think you have to give everyone your pick, but you're welcome to. I think everyone knows who you're going to pick in this game. Wesleyan has controlled this rivalry, and I'm going to give you 30 seconds or less to tell me what your thoughts are on this game.
Yes. Look, Wesleyan's won 11 of the last 12 games between these teams. Wesleyan's won the last 7 times they played at historic Andrews Field, and they've scored more than 30 points in 6 of those games. And some of those teams, by the way, were some pretty decent Bowdoin teams. So there's some players in those games. And some of those games, despite Wesleyan winning and scoring more than 30 points, they were close games. I don't think that this one is going to be that close. I also think Wesleyan will top the 30-point mark again at home. I have Wesleyan giving 35 points in this game, and I have Wesleyan winning this game 45-7. And I don't think this is going to be that much of a contest. I think the likelihood of Wesleyan looking past Bowdoin, especially playing at home, and given some of the recent histories between Wesleyan and Bowdoin, I think Wesleyan will be, and this is, as you and I have talked about, this is not the Wesleyan team that is looking past opponents. The last 3 weeks, Amherst, Williams, Trinity for Wesleyan. Usually we'd say this game could be a trap game. I don't think in any way, shape, or form this is going to be a trap game for Wesleyan.
I'm on the call, so I will not make a prediction, but I think for bookkeeping purposes, where my thoughts are on this one, we're going to keep moving forward with
But by the way, Chris, one last thing. I am staying away from the booth on this game. The last time that they
Wesleyan
played,
won.
They won, but if you remember what happened in the third quarter when I came up and did the color, so I am staying away from the booth on this game.
I do remember. I was very much a part of it.
Yes, you were.
So we're going to move forward. Tufts with a trip to Clinton as they take on Hamilton. This is a Hamilton team, as we mentioned. They've had to play Wesleyan and Trinity in back-to-back weeks. I'm sure there's going to be some healing needed for Hamilton at their quarterback position, as Luke Curzon has taken a lot of bumps the last couple of weeks. Tufts getting some good quarterback play. I imagine we're going to see Tufts going back to the freshman quarterback, and I envision Tufts being a slight favorite in this game, but that's why I lean on you, Dave. What is your call on this one?
Yeah, interesting game. As we know, as we've said, Hamilton's first in the NESCAC in passing offense still by a couple yards over Wesleyan. Tufts has been good defending the pass. They're number 2 in the NESCAC. The one thing is Hamilton's had a tough time protecting Curzon, but Tufts is not great rushing the passer. They're 9th in the NESCAC in sacks. The last time these teams played in Clinton 2 years ago was one of the better games you'll ever see in the NESCAC. Hamilton won in 5 overtimes. They got down to where you do from the 3, you do the 2-point conversion thing. Yeah. And Hamilton won that. Luke Curzon had a great game as a freshman, as a first year against Tufts, threw for 2 TDs, ran for another. I don't think Hamilton's had 2 tough games in a row against 2 really good teams. I don't think this is going to be that sort of a blowout. I think this is going to be a much closer game. I do think Tufts wins. I have Tufts giving 14 points on the road, which is probably it's a pretty big spread.
Pretty aggressive line, yeah.
Yeah, I think Tufts wins this game 24-13 by 2 touchdowns, but I think that Tufts covers late. I don't think
you just said Tufts 24-13.
Yeah, I think Hamilton does cover the 14-point spread, but I think it's going to be a late Tufts touchdown. I think this game is going to be nip and tuck all game and going back at each other. Tufts offense has struggled, but they made the change at quarterback. They looked a little bit better last week against Bates. Yeah, I think Tufts wins 24-13 in Clinton.
Yeah, the narrative of this game is going to be, what's the development for Hudson Weidman at quarterback for Tufts? Do they have their quarterback of the future? Does he build on his performance against Bates? And if that is the case, I think Tufts wins this game pretty comfortably. But you mentioned Tufts has been pretty stingy for the most part against the pass, and Hamilton is going to have to figure out a way to find more balance offensively. That's really the nuts and bolts of the whole thing for Hamilton, because they could have some success dinking and dunking around the field, but Hamilton's really struggled with the shot play this year. They've struggled with getting explosives on offense. At home, maybe they can figure that out, right? It's a great opportunity for both teams to get a big win, and wins are hard to come by in the league. But I tend to agree with you. I like Tufts in this one. Okay, there are 3 games this week where I think there's a clear favorite, but there's also a scenario where either team can win. And we'll start off in Amherst against Colby. Now, this is a Colby team that has 2 good wins, but Amherst has been very impressive in all the games they've played this year. And Merrick Hill, we talked about it, 370 plus yards of total offense last week. You heard our interview with him, just a really impressive kid. And I just don't see any stopping Amherst in this football game, the way they're playing. And as much as Colby has struggled offensively, it's not as if this Amherst defense is going to make things any easier for them. I don't see any scenario where Amherst doesn't figure out a way to win this game by double digits.
Yeah, so Amherst is off to their best start since 2019 when they started 4-1. That year did not end well for them. They lost their last 4 games and ended up being 4-5. I think this year ends differently for them, primarily as a result of their superior offense. On this game, as you said, both defenses are decent, but I think the difference here is Amherst's offense led by Merrick Hill is just better than Colby's. And I think that's the difference in this game. So Colby has struggled on offense. Their high water mark for points is 17 all year. And Amherst is one of the better defenders in the league. Believe it or not, Colby's actually won the last 4 games that these teams have met. I saw that. I had to do a double take on that. I was a little bit shocked by that. But prior to the latest winning streak, Amherst won the previous 24 games. So I think if Amherst gets to the 20-point mark, they'll win. I think they reverse that 4-game losing streak, and they keep pace with the leaders in the NESCAC. I have Amherst at home giving 7 points, giving a touchdown, but I have Amherst, to your point, winning by double digits, winning 20-10 in a relatively low-scoring game. I just think Amherst's better offense will be the difference here.
Yeah, I think it's going to look very similar to the game we saw last week with Colby and Wesleyan. I think Amherst has figured out what they're doing offensively, and Colby just hasn't found a way to create any points on offense, right? The 2 wins they have, the Trinity game was on the back of their defense dominating the game. They had 1 drive really in that game, and the Bates game, very little offense to speak of. They ended up winning it in overtime, but it was a 6-3 game late. So
yeah,
definitely struggling to figure out ways on offense. And I think it's going to be more of the same this week, especially playing at Pratt Field. I like Amherst pretty comfortably in this game. All right. So our penultimate game, we have 2 real options here. Listen, we talked to representatives from both teams in this one. Williams having to travel to Lewiston to take on Bates. Bates is looking for back-to-back wins for the first time in a very long time. And they've had some successes over the last couple of years, but they've been unable to build off of that. And this is a Williams team that's as balanced as any team in this league, both offensively and with playmakers on defense. I imagine you have Williams as I'm going to say Dave has Williams as a 7 to 10 point favorite here on the road in Lewiston. How do you see this one going?
Yeah, I don't think this is a great matchup for Bates. Coach Coyne started his collegiate career at Williams. He played his first couple of years there. This is one of those games he circles on the schedule every year. He's never beaten Williams as long as he's been at Bates. Obviously, he had a good track record against Williams when he was at Wesleyan. They've lost the last 7 in a row to Bates. I just think right now
to Williams.
I'm sorry, to Williams. So they lost. Williams has beat Bates the last 7 games. Sorry. Thank you, Chris. I just think that Williams' running game and the balance now with Zach Falls and with Johansson throwing the ball well. I actually have Williams as a 17-point favorite in this game. And I think Williams wins 27-10. I think that they can smell those last couple games. They want to get there. It's a tough trip going from Williamstown to Bates. So, but I just feel like Williams is poised to have a breakout statement game. And I think Johansson and Orris have big days for Williams. And here's the issue for Bates, and Williams seems to do well against these teams. It's have more of an offense that's more one-dimensional, and Bates is certainly that. They run the ball very well. They haven't thrown the ball as well, and I think that plays into they've been really good against the run. Their front 7 is playing at a very high level, and I think that's going to be a little bit of a challenge for that flex option.
Yeah, the one thing I will say, I tend to agree that I've been very bullish on Williams this year. If you look back to Bates's big win against Wesleyan last year, it wasn't necessarily running the football. They caught Wesleyan cheating up, and they hit 2 big pass plays in that game. And the only way I see Bates winning this football game is to go against the grain and to take those chances and to connect throwing the football, because we have seen Williams be vulnerable against the pass this year.
Absolutely.
To your point, if Bates comes into this game and they're going to try to lean on Linsky and think that he's going to run for 220 yards and 4 touchdowns, they're not going to win. But if they go against the grain and they play at home and they get in front, there's some confidence with that team. They could have a chance, but I'm not going to go against what I've been saying this year. I think Williams is a comfortable favorite in this game, and I think they get away with a victory. But that is something to keep your eye on. That's there for the taking. If a team cheats up too much against the option, you're going to have 2 or 3 opportunities during the course of the game in obvious running situations where you can catch a defense, and you've got to take advantage of those. Last year against Wesleyan, they had 2 of those opportunities. They both resulted in touchdowns in single coverage. They got a big road win. This year they're playing at home. But again, it's going to be a tough task. It's going to be an uphill climb. But I do think that Williams wins this game. I think it's probably maybe more of a 10-point game, but I think Williams has too much on both sides of the ball for Bates at this point. All right, last game of the year. It's our game of the week. And you got 2-3 Middlebury taking on 4-1 Trinity. Middlebury has lost to Wesleyan, Amherst, and Williams. 3 of the 4-1 teams. Now they play the other 4-1 team in Trinity. So obviously Middlebury's schedule is very front-loaded compared to the other favorites in this league. Middlebury coming off of probably their best performance of the year last week on the road in Williamstown. We talked about it. They had a great opportunity to, at a minimum, force overtime, and late in the game, they were right there with a chance to win the game. And they're taking on a Trinity team that's coming off a 49-0 victory and clearly playing their best football of the year. As we talked to Coach Devaney last week, he thinks his team continues to improve, obviously at the most important position. But there's one thing you got to throw out here. Middlebury 2 years ago won the NESCAC, and they won at Trinity. Last year, Trinity had 2 losses, and one of them was against Middlebury. So that's 2 years in a row that Middlebury has had the secret sauce under Coach Mandigo against Trinity. Now, can it happen 3 years in a row? It's unlikely, but if you watch Middlebury play Williams last week, there was not a big difference in those 2 teams, and Williams and Trinity played, and there was a marginal difference in both. You could put both those games into a hat, and you might have gotten completely different results every time you pull a number out of there. I think this game is going to be a 4-quarter game, Dave. I really do.
Yeah, look, Coach Mandigo has never lost as head coach to Trinity.
Pretty good.
On the other side, Trinity hasn't lost 3 years in a row to the same team in 30 years. There's that. I just feel like this year, and we talked a little bit about it earlier, this is a different Middlebury team. It's a transition year in some ways for Middlebury, particularly in the O-line and the front 7 on defense. Trinity is getting better every week. They had a tough game 1 against Colby. I still, for the life of me, having seen Colby now play, I just scratch my head at that one. But hey, things happen in the NESCAC. It is the NESCAC. I just think that Trinity is peaking at the right time. They're playing at home. They know the history with Middlebury. Coach Devaney knows he's never beaten. Coach Mandigo is a head coach. I just feel like he's going to want to send a message. I don't think Trinity wins by 50 points or anything like that, but I think that I have Trinity as a 17-point favorite in this game. I think Trinity wins 34-17. I'm not even sure it's that close. I just think they're a better football team. I think Trinity and Wesleyan are fairly similar in a lot of ways from a competence standpoint, and that's about what Wesleyan beat Middlebury by. So that's the stick I'm using to measure Trinity by, and they are playing at a higher level right now. And look, I was 4-1 last week. I'm getting ready this week to be 5-0. I do feel good about a Trinity win. I think they're going to win pretty handily as they get ready to get into the meat of their schedule the last couple weeks.
I'm just going to say one thing. One thing that Middlebury does that Trinity hasn't come up against is they have a balanced offense. If you give Trinity an opportunity to focus in on a team, if you look at their successes this year, they dominated Tufts, who at that point couldn't throw the football down the field. They dominated Bates, couldn't throw the football down the field. Colby game you can throw out because that was really just a defensive struggle, right? There wasn't really any offense to speak of. They didn't know what their quarterback play was at that point. And then last week, Hamilton dominated both sides of the ball, especially on the lines. Middlebury is balanced. They might not have the same dudes that Trinity has, but they have some dudes. Mm-hmm. They have dudes at the running back position. They have Ahonen is a dude at receiver, and they have very competent quarterback play. If Middlebury's offensive line can protect, they're going to be in this football game. I'm telling you right now, they will be. Now, I don't know defensively if Middlebury can keep pace with Trinity. I don't think they will. But I can tell you right now, if you look up at the scoreboard, much like I said in the preview last week when Middlebury was playing Williams, Middlebury's in this football game in the 4th quarter. I'm not going to be surprised. at all. I'm really not.
Yeah, I think you look at X factors, difference makers. My X factor in this game is Nolan O'Brien, playing at a very high level. Did not have a great game last week against Williams. Williams did a good job of defending him. Other guys got it done. I'm sorry, when they did play, he did play well. But Nolan O'Brien did not have a huge game last week against Hamilton, I meant to say. But he's there, and I think he's the X factor in this game for me against Middlebury.
Yeah. Hold on. I haven't made my pick yet.
Yep.
So I don't think Middlebury has anyone that can match up with Nolan O'Brien. And I don't think Middlebury has guys defensively that can match up with Trinity's guys. But I also think, as someone who's experienced this, football is weird. It's a matchup-based game. And when you have guys on this roster that are juniors and seniors that have beaten Trinity both home and away, and they're playing for their season right. Now, listen, Middlebury wins this game. I don't want to say going to coast, but they're going to be favored in every game the rest of the year. And you go from looking at being 2-4 to looking at a 6-3 season. With all that being said, I'm not going to pick against Trinity at home. But let me straddle that line. I think this is going to be a 4-quarter game. I really do. And if it's a 4-quarter game and you've lost to a team 2 years in a row, all bets are off. That's all I'm saying. We'll know more. Listen, Trinity hasn't been tested since the Williams game, obviously, and Middlebury is coming off of a big test. I think that this is going to be the one game. This is going to be the one game this week that we're going to look back on and say, wow, can you believe that game when we're talking from now?
So just to be transparent, you are picking Trinity, though. You have to say.
You know what? I don't get paid for this. You know what? Let's have some fun. Let's have some fun. 24-21 Middlebury.
Wow. Okay. All right. This is the game. It's the playoff game. And of course, I know you don't pick the Wesleyan game because you're on the call. So
yeah.
So the 4 games were.
I'll give you which team I'm picking in that game. Well, I think you know who I'm picking in that game.
Yeah, I know who you're picking. That's an easy pick.
Yeah, so I'm doing it.
All right.
What do I care? Let's have some fun.
All right. So we picked the same on 4 and we differ on 1. So the game of the week.
I'm going to give you a really good chance to be a winner this week, Dave. That's what I'm doing. Everyone just.
I don't know about a good chance, but it's a chance. We'll take it. So
the best chance I can give you.
Yep.
Listen, it's another fun week. We've got some interesting matchups. I look forward to seeing you on Saturday. I look forward to connecting with all of our friends who are going to be around on Saturday. Please come say hello to us if we haven't met you. I'd love to get to introduce myself. And
Chris, we got you want to hear what the menu is for Saturday? We've got.
Oh, don't tell me.
You want to be surprised?
Surprise me. Just I don't want to know your picture.
But I think we may have to rate the tailgate after every game. So
I'll let everyone know next week because we have a backloaded schedule. We got 3 home games left. Don't ruin it for me. I do want to say, make sure that you click subscribe and please share this with other people that you think might have interest. You don't have to watch the whole thing. You can skip forward, find the parts that you like. We got great interviews. We've got great guests. Everyone is being so nice, great sponsors. We really appreciate it. Dave and I put a lot of time into it. Dave and his family put a lot of time into it. We hope you like it. We're going to keep doing it. I want to thank, of course, Dave's lovely wife, Priscilla, for being patient because he puts a lot of time into this. I cannot believe she puts up with it. And my lovely wife, Jennifer, for taking care of the family duties when we do this podcast because it's not easy.
And of course, let's not forget our executive producer, my amazing daughter Emma, who's been doing this for 2 seasons now. She's crushing it. So thank you to Emma for all the hard work she puts in.
Of course. Thank you, Emma, and thank you everyone who makes this thing happen. Game Time Sports, Sloan Walsh. And if you want to sponsor the podcast, please let Dave know. We're happy to bring more sponsors on in any way that we think makes sense. And if you want to be a part of this podcast, please let us know. We will sign off for now. We look forward to catching up 1 week from today. Please enjoy your NESCAC weekend, wherever you may be traveling, listening to, or watching this podcast. For Dave and for all of our guests, I'm Chris Grace. Until next time, this is 9 weeks, your unofficial NESCAC Football Podcast. Enjoy the games. So long, everybody.